breaking down the entirety of Washington's 2025 football schedule. In this 12-minute video, I'm going to talk about all 12 teams that the Huskies will play for 1 minute each. In doing so, I hope this helps to better understand what you can expect from each one of these teams in 2025. The first two non-conference games of the season, Colorado State and UC Davis, both these games on Big Ten Network, starting out with a team from the Mountain West. Colorado State is the Week 1 matchup. This team is led by third-year starting quarterback Braden Fowler-Nicolosi, who last year had this team finish second in the Mountain West. They didn't make the conference title game by a tiebreaker. Last year's leading receiver Armani Winfield returns for 2025. Tulsa transfer Lloyd Avant is expected to be the running back. He was impressive this spring, but they returned just 2 starters on the offensive line. The defense returns just 1 starter, but the biggest addition for them this offseason was edge rusher Jaquez Evans from Baylor and Western Kentucky. His biggest season was 2022, 106 tackles and 14 tackles for loss. UC Davis will be a top 10 FCS team entering 2025, and they return 9 FCS all-conference players. Tim Plow was a first-year head coach last season, and they made the quarterfinals of the FCS playoffs. It's one of the most experienced returning offensive lines in the FCS. All 5 players are back. 4 of them played over 930 snaps in 2024 alone. But defensively, it's a different story for UC Davis. They added a lot in the transfer portal. Only 2 players returned who had more than 200 snaps from last season, and they returned just 2 of their top 15 tacklers. Washington's first road game of the year is the Apple Cup in Pullman, and it's going to be a very different Cougars team this year. New head coach Jimmy Rogers coming from South Dakota State. A defensive head coach. It's no longer going to be the air raid for the Washington State offense. They'll run a base 4-3 defense this season, a more traditional use of defensive ends, 3 linebackers as opposed to the 4-2-5 that we've seen from them in years past. Not as much nickel in this defense. There are no returning starters on this defense for the Cougars, but 2 guys from South Dakota State to watch. Defensive tackle Max Balloon, a 3-year starter for the national championship teams of South Dakota State. And strong safety transfer Tucker Large from South Dakota State was an FCS All-American. This safety room for the Cougars could be their best position group on defense. On offense, quarterback Zevi Eckhouse, this program believes has a higher floor than John Mateer did last season, a more consistent player, and he's going to be leading a more balanced offensive attack with a focus on the run game. The O-line returns 2 of their best in Brock Dew and Christian Hilborn, and at receiver, Josh Meredith returns. He had a big game in the Apple Cup, likely their wide receiver 1 this season. The reigning national champions will play in Seattle for the 2nd season in a row. It's the Ohio State Buckeyes, and they bring with them a potential Heisman Trophy candidate in wide receiver, true sophomore Jeremiah Smith. 1,300 receiving yards, 15 receiving touchdowns, and 17 yards per catch a season ago. The matchup potential with Smith and Washington's cornerbacks is going to be exciting. But there will be a new quarterback for the Buckeyes. It's former 5-star Julian Sayin. They believe he is the guy. He's got a very quick release and an accurate thrower of the football. Despite the attrition from last year's national championship team, this is still a talented offense, a deep receiver room. They also bring in Max Clare, tight end from Purdue in the transfer portal with over 680 receiving yards last season and 4 touchdowns. The offensive line is also expected to be strong this season. A few returning starters, and Rice transfer at left tackle Ethan Onyanwa is expected to be plug and play at the position. On defense, Caleb Downs could be the top safety in college football. 82 tackles last season, also had 6 pass breakups and 2 interceptions. The group also returns Davison Igbinosun at cornerback, but last season, trouble with the penalties, 16 called against him in 2024. But the defensive line is the biggest question for the Buckeyes this season. Relatively thin depth compared to what they have. That could help Washington establish a run game. It's the first conference game of the season, and it's expected to be the Purple Out game on September 27th. Washington heads to the nation's capital, and the expected quarterback for Maryland this season is true freshman, former top 5 quarterback in the class of 2025, Malik Washington. He was 12 of 18 for 168 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns in the Maryland spring game. And this is an offense that loses Roman Hemby, the running back transferred to Indiana, but Nolan Ray is a fast and explosive running back, one they haven't had in a while. In the passing game, they lose 1,000-yard receiver Ty Felton to the NFL, but they pick up Oklahoma transfer Jaleel Farouk, and Octavian Smith returns at receiver as well. But up front, there's some question marks on the offensive line. Pep Hamilton is the new offensive coordinator for the Terrapins. He and head coach Mike Locksley go back. That should help for the continuity of this offense. But defensively, there's only one starter back from last season. That's safety Jalen Husky. He had 3 picks a year ago, and the group also upgraded at corner Dante Joyner from Arkansas State, 7 pass breakups last season and 2 interceptions. And if there's an underrated player to watch for Maryland this season, it's Daniel Wingate, the 6'5" linebacker and freak athlete. Rutgers comes out to Seattle on October 10th. This is a Friday night game for homecoming, and quarterback Ethan Kaliakmanis is going to be a third-year starter. It's his second year at Rutgers. He started 1 year at Minnesota. His 2,700 passing yards last season were the most by a Rutgers quarterback since 2014, and he's throwing to Ian Strong and KJ Duff, both returning from last season. Duff is 6'6". And they added DT Sheffield in the slot from North Texas. He's a fast wide receiver who had 822 yards and 11 touchdowns for the Mean Green last season. The Scarlet Knights have some weapons in the receiver room. And that's probably good because CJ Campbell and Antoine Raymond are going to be a running back by committee in the backfield now that Kyle Monungai has moved on. The offensive line should be a strength, returning 4 starters, but on the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of transfers, including 5 transfers along the defensive line. So there's a lot of unknowns up front. They were 95th in total defense last year. Only Purdue was worse in terms of yards per game in the Big Ten last season. But leading tackler, linebacker Dariel Jabome, 105 tackles last season, is back on this defense. Big expectations for him. Washington visits Michigan for the first time since 2021. It'll be the 4th matchup in that span between these two programs. And the Wolverines had a solid ending to a very mediocre season, beating both Ohio State and Alabama in their final 2 games. And you have to start on the offensive side of the ball, where the #1 overall recruit in 2025, Bryce Underwood, is expected to be the starter for the Wolverines. Alex Orji transferred. 4-star recruit Jaden Davis is still in that quarterback room, but Michigan also brought in Mikey Keene from Fresno State with a lot of experience. He's likely to back up Underwood this season. It'll be a different running back room for the Wolverines as well. Running back Jordan Marshall rushed for 100 yards on the Crimson Tide in the bowl game. He's back for his sophomore season, and Justice Haynes transferred from Alabama, also in this Wolverine running back room. Tight end Colston Loveland is also off to the NFL. He led the Wolverines in receiving last season, so there's a big void to fill in that regard. This is a passing offense that ranked only ahead of the service academies last season, 131st in the country. On the other side of the ball, at edge, Derek Moore had 37 quarterback pressures a year ago, and opposite of him, it's TJ Guy, who was a rotational player in 2024. He'll be the starter on the other side. Those two are expected to be the biggest presence up front for this Wolverine defense because on the inside, Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant are also off to the NFL. Safety Rod Moore will return for 2025 after an ACL injury kept him out all of last season. And at cornerback, it's Zeke Berry and Jair Hill, who each return over 600 snaps from 2024. Illinois will be an opportunity for defensive coordinator Ryan Walters to coach against his former team. He turned that Fighting Illini defense into a top 5 unit in that 2022 season. He's installing a similar defense here at Washington, but Illinois, like Rutgers, is bringing a 3rd-year starting quarterback to Montlake. It's Luke Altmaier, who threw for 2,700 yards and 22 touchdowns a season ago. Keeping this coaching staff together was one of the biggest offseason wins for the Illini. Barry Lunney is in his 4th year as the offensive coordinator for Illinois. It's a modern, versatile offense where passing is the strength. Though the receiver room will look different this year, Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin both gone. It's going to be Hudson Clement, Malik Elzy, and Colin Dixon at receiver. But most importantly for this offense, Illinois returns all 5 starting offensive linemen who started the final 8 games of the 2024 season. That includes left tackle J.C. Davis, an all Big Ten tackle from last season. Defensively, Illinois returns its entire back 7. That includes Matthew Bailey, who was the team's best tackler, 94 on the season. He also had 7 pass breakups. Xavier Scott returns at nickelback. He's a versatile player. This defense has a lot of tools to be good in 2025 with all that returning experience on the back end. The Wisconsin Badgers went to the transfer portal for a quarterback for the 3rd straight season, and they picked up Billy Edwards from Maryland. He threw for 15 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last season with over 2,800 passing yards. And he'll have Vinny Anthony and Jaden Ballard to throw to. Anthony returns from last season with the Badgers, and Ballard transferred over from Ohio State. This is a receiver room with a lot of speed. But this offense wants to get back to its power running days. Last season, the Badgers ranked outside the top 70 in rushing offense, averaging just 150 yards per game. So they hired Jeff Grimes for the offensive coordinator. He has run game coordinating and offensive line coaching experience. And the Badgers returned over 2,400 snaps along their offensive line from last season, including 3 starters. Defensively, the Badgers were not very good against the run last season. They ranked around 40th last year in total defense. And Ricardo Hallman said at Big Ten Media Days they're looking to be more aggressive on defense with coordinator Mike Tressel, who's been with Luke Fickell for the last 4 seasons. And Christian Allegro at linebacker is a player to watch on this defense. Could be the best player on that side of the ball. He had 5.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, and 66 tackles a year ago.
Just, wreaking more havoc and cost.
Purdue comes to Seattle in November. It's another opportunity for Ryan Walters to face one of his former teams. He was the head coach there last season, but in 2025, Barry Odom is the new head coach for the Boilermakers. He's coming from UNLV, where he won 19 games in 2 seasons. But the biggest win of the offseason for this Boilermaker team was the return of Devin Mockabee at running back. He has 21 touchdowns over 3 seasons, and he's just 1,170 yards away from becoming the top rusher in Purdue history. And he's going to need to carry the load for this offense with new quarterback Ryan Brown. It also lost their top receiver, tight end, Max Clare, to Ohio State in the transfer portal. And defensively, no starters are back for Purdue. That's probably a good thing. This team ranked 124th in total defense, over 452 yards allowed per game. Linebacker Sanders Ellis is a name to know on this defense. 15.5 tackles for loss at Tennessee State last season, but the secondary lost 11 players in the transfer portal after last season. It's very much a rebuild for the Boilers this season, but it'll be a reunion for Jack McAllister making his return to Husky Stadium. He transferred to Purdue this offseason at punter. Washington heads to the Rose Bowl in November this season. Tino Sunseri is the new offensive coordinator for the UCLA Bruins. He's the brother of former Washington safeties coach Vinny Sunseri. As such, the offense will look similar to Indiana from a year ago when Sunseri was the offensive coordinator there. But the Bruins have a significant talent upgrade at quarterback, Nico Iamaleava transferring from Tennessee this offseason. 2,600 yards and 19 passing touchdowns last season for Iamaleava, and he'll be throwing to returning receiver Quasi Gilmer, an athletic, playmaking wide receiver with a great catch radius. They also added Mikey Matthews at the position, a Cal transfer, a shifty wide receiver in the slot, and this offense expects their offensive line to be better than a season ago. It has more depth, and a healthy Cortland Ford will help shore up the left tackle spot that was leaky a season ago. Defensively, the Bruins lack a true difference maker at the edge position. It's a more traditional defensive end group, and they brought in 9 transfers in the defensive back room alone, just at cornerback, safety, and nickel. Key Lawrence was one of those transfers they brought in. He's from Ole Miss at safety. They said he looked really good this spring, and he's got 50 games of experience of college football. The Oregon Ducks are replacing a lot in 2025, but could be just as good. This is the home finale for Washington on Thanksgiving weekend. This offense is excited about Tulane transfer Mekhi Hughes at running back. He's off of 2 straight seasons with 1,300 plus rushing yards for the Green Wave. He's a big and physical running back. They believe he can be better than Jordan James. And quarterback Dante Moore has some talented pass-catching weapons. Evan Stewart returns. True freshman DeCorian Moore, they believe, is ready. He's a playmaking, talented wide receiver, former 5-star. And Kenyon Sadiq at tight end runs 23 miles an hour and has a 41-inch vertical jump. He is a freak at the position. And on defense, this team feels good at edge with Mateo Uiagalelei back, and at linebacker, their leading tackler, Bryce Betcher, returns. But this defense loses every starter from last season in the secondary. So a lot of new faces back there, including Purdue transfer Dylan Thieneman, a former freshman All-American. He had back-to-back seasons with the Boilermakers with 100-plus tackles.